Hello and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, no matter where in the world you might be, and welcome to our newest session for a technical takeoff entitled Exploring Windows Cloud Solutions, Insights and Sample Scenarios. My name is Carolyn Carnes. I'm Director of Product Marketing for Azure Virtual Desktop and Windows 365, and I'm joined today by Scott Manchester, who's Vice President of Product Management for both of these Windows Cloud solutions. Welcome, Scott.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good evening and good afternoon.
So today we're going to be spending a little bit of time talking about these two industry-leading cloud solutions designed to meet a diverse array of customer needs. And so in this session, we'll review the key differences between the two, sort of a Q&A style, you and me here, Scott, and demo some IT admin and employee experiences that showcase how customers and scenarios can be best served by their unique capabilities. And just as a little bit of a bonus, you'll see a bit of another virtualization service that's relatively new to our portfolio, Microsoft DevBox, and see a little bit of how it fits into the picture of delivering Windows from the cloud. So let's go ahead and get started. So if the producers could go ahead and pull up a quick slide for me, I think this will be a great place to get us all started. Oh, nope, let's go past the agenda. Here we go. So obviously, a lot of folks come and approach us talking about virtualization solutions, and we wanted to take a couple of minutes talking about them in case you're a little less familiar about looking at them side by side. So as you can see here, Windows is a critical foundation for how customers experience Microsoft technology. And on the far left-hand side, there is one of three key ways that Microsoft delivers Windows. And let's face it, local OS is something I think all of us are quite familiar with, so I'm not going to spend any time on that, but it definitely is something to be keeping in mind because that is the way that a lot of folks traditionally think about Windows delivery. But what we're going to focus on is actually on the other side of the slide and take a couple of seconds to really understand both Cloud VDI and Azure Virtual Desktop and Cloud PC in the form of Windows 365. So let's start with Azure Virtual Desktop. If you have in-house VDI capabilities, Azure Virtual Desktop can be a powerful way to meet flexible work strategies. And so if you have a need for secure remote desktops, this can provide a management interface with maximum flexibility and control. And that's really one of those critical things, that sort of center bottom of the slide, that allows folks to really see the service shine. It also has consumption-based pricing that ensures you only pay for what you use. And all of this means that you have access to these Windows experiences without compromising on security. Plus, it comes with a variety of built-in ways to reduce costs. You can leverage Windows multi-session, which is an exclusive feature of Azure Virtual Desktop. And again, flexibility and control are going to be some of the key themes you hear from us today and that you should see from other opportunities to interact with the service. And then on the far right-hand side of the slide, we have something a little different. So Windows 365 is a software as a service, or a SaaS solution. And it combines the power and the security of the cloud with the familiarity of that physical PC experience that we had on the far left-hand side of the slide. So employees stream their full personalized, persistent desktop from the cloud to any device, anywhere. And all of this is offered with flexible purchasing options and predictable monthly per-user pricing. So that's the cloud PC experience. That means you can have Windows 365 deployed in minutes with no VDI expertise required. And you're going to see a little bit of that on display as well today. And again, you should see that as a common theme in interactions with the service going forward. So here we are. We have these two services that are complementary, that can be deployed side by side to meet customer needs. And this is the point at which I think we can really demonstrate that to folks. So Scott, I'm just going to turn it over to you. How do those philosophies that I outlined show up for an IT admin when deploying either of the services?
Yeah, that's a really great question. We get that a lot, Carolyn, from our customers. So what I'd like to do now is kind of walk through a setup experience example of both AVD and Windows 365 and kind of highlight some of those specific characteristics that Carolyn was talking about. That flexibility that you get with AVD, with all the various options of how you can configure your deployments, and the simplicity and end user experience that we create with Windows 365 Cloud PC. So let me share my screen real quick here. And I'm actually showing you my live test tenant for Azure Virtual Desktop and Windows 365. And here I'm at my landing page, my dashboard inside of Azure. And I've pinned a couple of objects here. The one I use most often, obviously, is Azure Virtual Desktop. So I'm going to drill right into that. And I've already set up a small deployment of Azure Virtual Desktop, created what we call a host pool, which is a group of one or more virtual machines that are hosting the workload of either apps or desktops and end up in a few different configurations. So let me walk you through what I have right now, and then we're actually going to go through the process of creating host pools so I can show you all the options you get. So based on the name, you can probably tell that this particular host pool is hosting remote apps. And if I drill into it, I can look at some of the properties. So you can see there's only one machine right now, and it's currently connected. There's 2 application groups. I'm hosting both remote apps and also the desktop application group. So if I go into the application groups, here you'll see the desktop application group, remote apps. If I drill into remote apps, you can even see the apps that I have provisioned here. And you're going to see this in a minute when I show you a demo of the new Windows app, how these get exposed inside of that client. So you can see I'm currently hosting these apps. If I wanted to add another one, I'd simply click add, walk through choosing the app I wanted to host, ensure that the assignments were correct, and I'd be off and running. So let me come all the way back here to the main page, the host pool page. And let me walk you through the process of creating a brand new host pool. So I'll simply go up to create here. And pay attention to all of the options I have. This is truly what differentiates AVD from other solutions in market and explicitly with our cloud PC offering. As Carolyn pointed out, this is a VDI product, taking all the constructs, workflows, and usage for on-prem type of VDI and moving it to the cloud and providing all that elasticity and offering that as a PaaS solution. So as I walk through this, you'll probably, whether you're a VMware, Citrix, or other admin, some of these concepts you'll understand, but the names we might use could be slightly different. So first off, as with any Azure service, I'm going to choose the subscription and the resource group. In this case, I've got a resource group that I use for all my AVD and cloud PC deployments. That's this one here. I'm going to give this host pool a name, and this one I'm going to make it just a session desktop. And I'm going to call it session desktop 1 because I might create other ones in the future. Now you'll see here I can choose where I want my metadata stored. So where's the location of this host pool object? I'm going to choose West US 3. Now, if you're building out a large AVD deployment and you're hosting lots and lots of users, it's highly recommended that you set up a host pool that's in our validation environment. This is the pre-release version of the service and agents and gives you an opportunity to test and validate those things before they roll out into the full production ring. So it's effectively the equivalent of an insider build of Windows, but for Azure Virtual Desktop. So in this case, I'm actually going to build a full production host pool. So I'm going to say no. The preferred app group type. The reason it says preferred is because I can actually change this later. I can host apps and desktops. It just makes it easier if you know upfront what you're going to use here. So I'm going to say it's desktops. Now in the pool type, 2 primary categories here. Personal type host pools are assigned a single user to a single VM. So it creates that link between those 2 objects. Pooled is the more common use case for Azure Virtual Desktop, which I create a pool of VMs that are somewhat generic, and then I can assign a group of users to them, and then our brokering assigns which user gets assigned to which machine out of that pool. So we're going to choose pool as the standard way of provisioning with AVD. Now we have 2 methods of how the users are allocated across this pool of VMs. Breadth first means that if I have 10 VMs in this pool, then I'll assign 1 user to each of the 10, and then the second user to each of the 10, and sort of stack them that way, spreading the load across all those machines. Now that can work really well if I've bought my compute resources under reserved instances or some other model where I've prepaid for them. But if I'm using the traditional pay-go model, then I probably want to be more cost conscious and do what we call depth first load balancing. And just as it would make sense that this is filling up one machine before I spin up and start assigning users to the next machine and on from there. So this works great using our scaling tools and setting up the scaling logic to spin up VMs as these VMs start to fill up. Now, I can set the max number of sessions per VM. Usually I make this decision in conjunction with the size of the VM I'm going to provision. In this case, I'm going to provision a 4-core machine. Now, there's lots of reasons that you might choose different size VMs and perhaps even different VMs within the same host pool. Because the way our scaling services work, you don't want to have a very large machine with just a single user on it. So there's some value in kind of managing the size of the VM. And again, this is part of all the capabilities you have as an admin to configure a pool or your entire AVD deployment to meet your specific needs. So I generally recommend no more than 4 users per core. There could be workloads that can support 6 users per core, but generally I like to limit it to 4. And I'm going to provision a 4-core machine. So I'm going to say max 16 session limit on that machine. One of the other wonderful things about creating host pools with AVD is I can create a host pool without assigning any VMs to it and then do that process later, meaning creating VMs and then joining them to a host pool. This also allows me the method of scaling out a host pool later over time. I'm going to give you an early preview of our next gen host pool management in just a few minutes, but for now, we'll just follow with this particular workflow. So in this case, I do want to add virtual machines. So I'm going to click yes, and you'll see a whole bunch of options get exposed to me here. So first off, let's choose the resource group, same as what I did for the objects. I'm going to give it a prefix name. And here you can see I've already used this name once before. So every VM will have the prefix sDesktop1 and then a dash 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on how many VMs I provision. Now, another very exciting new feature we amplified at Ignite is the new Azure Stack HCI support. So with this option, I can even provision resources on-prem to my Azure Stack HCI hardware. You can see that's in preview, and we announced at Ignite this will be available early next year. I'm going to stick to Azure proper and keep these VMs in Azure. I'm going to again choose West US 3 as my destination for these VMs. I have the ability to set various high availability parameters here. I'm going to say no high availability for this particular use case, but depending on the workload and your HA needs, you can choose some various options there. Same thing in the type of security that I want to provide. I highly recommended using Trusted Launch here. You can also provision confidential VMs or just standard VM types here. Once I've done that, I can choose to enable the secure boot, TPM, and even turn on integrity monitoring. Now, getting down to images. Here, if I just click this drop down, you can see some pretty standard images that are made available to me. I can choose this see all images and get lots of additional options, including my own custom images, which I'm going to show you how to create those in just a minute. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to pick this Windows 11 Enterprise Multi-Session, the latest version with the Microsoft apps and a Gen 2 VM. Going to size, you can see the default here is 2 core. I mentioned earlier, I want to choose a VM type that benefits from enough users on it that I get the law averages that help me ensuring that no particular user is usurping all the resources from other users. So I generally like to start at around 8 cores. Being this is my test environment, I'm just going to make this a 4-core machine. So I'll go in here and you'll see every VM type available to me. Another one of the powerful tools AVD provides is regions, even on-prem, and then any type of VM that I choose. I'm going to choose this D series. Where's that D series V3 here? And I'm going to choose this 4-core 16 gig memory option here. I will say select. I'll scroll down here inside on whether I want to enable boot diagnostics. So it's probably a good, recommended parameter to set this to on and to be able to see what type of issues I might have if this VM isn't booting correctly. For now, I'm just going to make it disabled just to simplify things. And here I will choose where do I want to provision to? What VNet that I've already established do I want this VM to be joined to? So I've already set up this West US 3 VNet here. I'm going to choose the default subnet. Another best practice I recommend is also setting up a VNet for Azure Bastion, which gives you a backdoor into your machine. So if you ever want to run some diagnostics or do some validation, it's nice to be able to fall back to Bastion to be able to connect to those VMs. I'm going to leave it with the network security group type in basic. I'm not going to open any inbound ports on the VM. Another great capability of AVD, we use reverse connect for remoting. So I'm not required to open any inbound ports. And then domain join type. I can do AD join or the new Microsoft Entra ID join, which I'm going to choose. And I'm also going to choose to enroll these VMs directly into Intune at the time that they were provisioned. For me, this makes it nice. I can have a central place to attest that all of my virtual machines meet my compliance standards. And in a minute, I'm going to switch to the Windows 365 view inside of Intune, and I'll show you what this looks like. Now, as always, I need to provide the username and password for the admin account on the local machine. Validate that I typed that correctly twice. And if I want to run any additional scripts, I can put the URL in here. Next, I'll move to workspace. Yes, I want to register the desktop application group. We're going to put it in this existing workspace I created. And that's basically all the parameters that I would need to create this host pool. So let's click review and create. Make sure I put in every parameter that was required. Validation passed. And here you can see every option that I was able to choose and how I wanted to create and provision this host pool. Now I would simply click create here, and this host pool would be done in about 20 minutes. And with that, after I've done that, then you would see that host pool show up here next to the other one. And then I can assign specific users to that group, and immediately they'd have access to it. So once I've done this, it's actually pretty quick to go through this, get a host pool provision, and I can make additional host pools for different users that could be located in different parts of the world. So that gives you kind of a quick overview of the experience and all the options I have available to me to provision resources using our Azure Virtual Desktop Cloud VDI solution. Let me now transition to Intune portal, where you can see how you provision and manage cloud PCs with Windows 365. So here I am in the main landing page of Intune. I'm going to click on the Devices tab here. And you'll see in the submenu, there's an option here for Windows 365. So let's go ahead and click on that. And now you can see all the settings to provision and manage your cloud PCs inside of Intune. So first off, on this landing page, you get some insights about what I have provisioned already. You can see there's 12 machines that are provisioned correctly. I have 3 VNets, 2 that are successfully provisioned and 1 that's in a failed state. This is one of the really cool capabilities of Windows 365, is you have the ability to provision cloud PCs to the same VNets as your AVD resources or any VNet you create in Azure, but you can also provision to a Microsoft hosted network, effectively putting your cloud PCs on the public internet, just the way you would provision a laptop to one of your employees. And then you can use VPNs and other tools to manage that traffic. In my case, I have a mix. I have some cloud PCs managed on a Microsoft hosted network and some on specific VNets. And these VNets that I've created are being constantly monitored by the Cloud PC service to detect if there's any configuration issues. And here you can see there was some checks failed on this one, and it looks to be a DNS issue that I could quickly go resolve here. I can do a retry of this, but this test will run every couple of hours and let me know if this was automatically resolved. So that aside, let's go through this process, this one-time process of creating a provisioning policy. And I'll show you the difference in terms of the parameters that I can provide to create a cloud PC. So I say this is a one-time process because once I've created a provisioning policy, if I wanted to onboard 5,000 more users, for instance, or 100 users into any of my provisioning policies, the only task required to me is to go to any of the M365 portals that allow me to do license assignment and simply assign a cloud PC license. That user would get a cloud PC. I'll show you how that works here as I walk through the process of creating a provisioning policy. So you can see I have 4 right now. Let's go ahead and go through the process of creating a 5th provisioning policy. And let's call this one is my designers. Okay, I could give it a brief description. Now there's 2 different types of provisioning policies. There's the standard enterprise policy and there's the new frontline policy. Frontline is a very cool new offering that allows you to have more of a concurrent-based licensing model for Windows 365, where I can assign 3 times the many users of actual cloud PCs, really targeting that frontline use case or that shift worker use case scenario. In this case, I'm going to do a standard enterprise deployment, and I have the same option you saw in AVD. I can do a Microsoft Entra join or a hybrid join. If I want to provision to a Microsoft hosted network, then I would choose the Microsoft Entra join would be my only option because I would need line of sight to my domain controller to do hybrid. And here you can see the option. I can do either an Azure VNet and choose one of the ones I've created that are showing as valid. You saw that I had 3, but one of them has a problem, so it isn't letting me choose that option here. But in this case, I'm just going to choose the simplest option, which is a Microsoft hosted network. Now, Cloud PC and the Windows 365 service is available worldwide. So I can choose from a number of geographies of where I want to provision to, and many more are being added all the time here. I'm going to again choose West US, and then from a region specific, here there's only one particular one in West US, but I can leave it where Microsoft can determine where best to provision these machines, or I can be explicit about a specific area within a region if there's more than one available. Now, we are just now in GA on single sign-on, so I want to use this lovely new experience that allows me to only have to enter my password one time to both get authenticated to the service and to remote into the virtual machine. Next option is simply what image I want to use. We highly recommend you use our gallery image. You can see it defaults to the latest version here. Here, any specific configurations. If I want to install different language packs, I can choose that here. Do I want to apply my own naming template to the cloud PCs? And you can see there's some variables here. Not going to worry about that. And then the service type. Do I want to subscribe to Windows Auto Patch, which, as you probably heard at Ignite, lots of new features and capabilities coming with Auto Patch here. So I can automatically enroll these cloud PCs to be managed through Auto Patch. Again, I'm just going to say none. Assignments is something I can do later. This is effectively saying which group of users will get these cloud PCs. And this is where the magic of simply assigning a license to a user. If I put a user in a group and assign that group to a provisioning policy, any point in time when I want to add more cloud PCs, I simply apply licenses to those users in that group. They get their cloud PCs. I either remove the license or remove the user from the group, and the cloud PCs go into a non-provisioned state. I would click next. I would click create, and I would have created yet another provisioning policy. Now, as I pointed out, the general workflow, this is a one-time experience. The general workflow is simply adding and removing users to groups and assigning licenses, and that allows to configure these different user groups. So with that, let me turn things back over to Carolyn.
Awesome. So obviously, great way to introduce everybody to where the two services shine, as I was calling out, sort of flexibility and control for Azure Virtual Desktop and simplicity and experience for Windows 365. And I really want to just spend a little extra time on Windows 365, since in your demo, provisioning a cloud PC was really simple. I wasn't keeping track of the exact numbers, but I think there were over 30 different things to decide for AVD and only about less than 10 for Windows 365. So really, I think it's a nice way of demonstrating the complementary nature of the services. So if we get a little deeper into that cloud PC experience, one of the things that I thought was a really powerful announcement very recently at Ignite was the opportunity for resizing cloud PCs. And I think it's really valuable for a lot of our folks tuning in today to kind of better understand that the simplicity and experience doesn't mean you're trading off with those opportunities to optimize. So could you kind of walk us through a little bit about how easy it is to resize those cloud PCs, Scott?
Yeah, as Carolyn pointed out earlier, in those three different ways of delivering Windows. There's the physical Windows that we all know and love that's been around for many decades. Azure Virtual Desktop, which we've seen a demo now of how you can create various host pools, and then your Windows 365 Cloud PC. Carolyn and I and the rest of the team were very, very thoughtful about the terminology we used here. It may seem simple to just say something is a cloud PC, but it means something very specific to us. And that capital C in the cloud, it was a very meaningful thing. It means it's a defined term. And truly it is a PC like any other PC, through the lens of an IT admin and as much as possible through the lens of an end user. But one of the things that a cloud PC brings that's very unique from a physical PC is that elasticity, that ability to dynamically resize that machine based on the needs of a user. That's a very critical value prop that you get by moving your workloads to the cloud. When you think about buying a physical PC for a user, you're often forced to buy a machine that's oversized from the needs that user might have at that point in time. Because the cost of recycling a PC, to take that machine back, get all the data off, wipe it, build another machine with their data and give the user a machine back, it's a lot of IT overhead to do that. So in the physical world, we typically buy the biggest PC that we think we're ever going to need. But with the cloud and the elasticity, that's no longer an issue. We've had the ability to resize within Windows 365 for some time. But what I want to show you now is an early preview of our new cloud-powered AI-powered resizing tool. So let me walk through this demo real quick for you and kind of take you through what this experience looks like. So first off, this tool will run for a couple of weeks generally to provide you guidance, to give you the insights in your deployments on what machines are right-sized, meaning they were just the perfect size for the workload the users are running, which ones are undersized, oversized, and even ones that aren't being used regularly, we call those underutilized. In the View by Devices tab, I can filter on this. I can look at the usage category here and see which machines fall into that category of underutilized, undersized, and oversized and right size. Here in the underutilized, you can see there's been no active use in the last 4 weeks. These were machines I likely assigned to the IT department that aren't really using them anymore. I can pull those back. Here in this view, I can see my undersized machine. And notice here in that 2-core category, you see a few of these machines. When I go back and view by model, here you can see that I have a total of 42 users who are assigned 2-core machines that actually weren't the right size for that particular user. We detect this by measuring the amount of compute resources being used during this period of time, and storage and RAM. And so all of those factors let us know whether these machines should be sized differently to ensure that user is having the best experience. Sorry, I'll move forward here. One more slide. Now, this becomes very powerful when we provide mechanisms for you to easily resize these machines. So we have many options for how you can do this. One is you can simply take each individual machine and resize them using a workflow like you see here. And in this case, I can choose more memory, more cores, or more storage, and simply say resize. And all that has to happen for the user is they simply log off their cloud PC, and then they log back in and they have the new machine size. So I can double the RAM, double the compute, double the storage. The user, nothing changes to the user outside of getting these additional resources when they log back into their machine. Now, as you saw, there are cases where I might want to resize a whole group of users. In previous demo, we saw something like 40 users that had an undersized machine. So we also now support group-based resizing. So I can take every user in that group and say, give all those users a larger machine as a single option. Now, this really becomes powerful with our new step-up license support also, that allows you to add the delta between the machine they're at now and your target machine and simply buy that delta and then apply that step-up license to the user. At the end of your EA renewal, it'll convert to the new machine type and you're off and running. So really great options now to be able to address the needs of those users and understand how those machines are performing for their specific workloads.
Thank you so much, Scott, for sharing the great insights and demos for obviously what we consider, and I'm sure our audience can as well, very powerful cloud solutions. We're actually running a little short on time. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just let folks know that we do have a couple of other items that we'll be able to offer demonstration videos for available as part of Technical Takeoff. Go ahead and check them out for the remainder of the sessions this week. You should be able to see the aka.ms link at the bottom of the screen, which is /TT Windows in the Cloud. And really looking forward to getting feedback from everybody on the products, having everybody learn as much as they can this week. And obviously, we always want to be continually increasing the value that Azure Virtual Desktop and Windows 365 bring to you and your organizations. Thank you so much again, Scott, for your time this morning. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of the week. Take care.
Cheers, everyone.